bueno, mi gente, and happy Monday to everyone. Hope everybody has kicked off their week good, kicked it off strong. I see a bunch of people hopping on from over there on Elon's X. Pause. Good Lord, pause. And a couple people from YouTube. This is a new time, or different time this week. Had some stuff going on earlier, so wanted to hop on while I had time tonight because Bam Rodriguez needed to be talked about. He needs to be talked about. We need to be positive. We need to talk about the positive things in the sport. We'll focus on the negatives and what we need to fix. But boy, when something like this happens, we need to talk about it. This dude is the real deal. I see Jesus M, Anthony Sanchez hopping on. Fellas, let me know if y'all got alerts, because YouTube's been tripping hard. And salute Bam, top 5 pound for pound. Anthony Sanchez, salute Calix. Let me know where y'all think you got Usyk, Crawford, Inoue, better BF, Bam, pound for pound, solid. Everybody's got that same top 3, right? It's Usyk, Crawford, Inoue, and then some sort of deviation from there. Calix advertising GTA 6, the color scheme. That color scheme, we're going with this is called summer. This is called summer scheme. Surge, it's called the summer scheme and StreamYard. So I went with the summer scheme. We're going with the summer scheme. Jesus M, Bam must not avoid Junto Nakatani if Junto is still at 118. And we'll talk about that, because there are some things going on in the lower weight classes. And boy, do we love the lower weight classes on this channel. And why do we love the lower weight classes? Well, we've talked about that. It resembles a sport there. It resembles dudes actually fighting fights. It resembles some sort of fair and non-artificial pay scale that forces dudes in the fight. Because at the end of the day, this is a sport. I understand it's a business. I understand we can't feed our kids legacy. I understand it's still a sport at the end of the day. So that's why I love the lower weight classes. And once again, they did not disappoint this past weekend. And if you look at my pound for pound list, which I will unveil here in a minute, momentarily, heavy lower weight class. And it's just because the dudes fight the fights. It is what it is. They fight the fights. You got the notification, surprisingly. So that's good. A couple people getting notifications. That's good. So where do we start? Let's start with our guy Teofimo. Actually, no. Let's start with Sonny Edwards versus Curiel. Sonny Edwards looked good against Curiel. Nasty cut. I felt like he was styling. I felt like he's got some of the best legs and athleticism in the sport. The dude moves well. He'll keep you, no power, but he'll keep you honest with a little bit of power that he has. He'll at least keep you honest with it, because he's catching you from different angles and he's fast enough to hit you with shots that you don't see. He gets cagey when he has to get cagey. He bounces around the ring, great lateral movement. And Sonny Edwards, to me, showed that he's a really good fighter. And I think that win is going to age well for Bam Rodriguez. Another win that's going to age well for him. And when we talk about Bam Rodriguez, as we will in a minute, heavy Bam Rodriguez show today, because man, is this kid special. Boy, is he special. When we talk about him, we have a resume now at 24 years old. And on top of that, a strong resume. And on top of that, an elite fighter. The eye test flies off the screen against elite opposition. We've got now Gallo Estrada, Sorung Vise, we got Carlos Cuadras, and we got Sonny Edwards, all on his resume. And the Sonny Edwards win will age well, I believe, because Sonny Edwards is a hell of a fighter. Curiel was a guy who was going to be dangerous. Both of them coming off of losses, so it was a tough fight coming off a loss for both guys. And once again, it's the reason that I love the lower weight classes, is because guys will take tough fights even after losses. And that's what Sonny Edwards did in this fight. Tough loss against Bam Rodriguez. Curiel coming off of a tough loss against Nashinga. He split with him. And Sonny Edwards came in here and did his thing. So props to Sonny Edwards. Shout out to him. Heck of a performance. The dude has swag. The dude has swag on top of everything. He's got swag. He's got the legs. Pause. He's got lateral movement. Nice jab. Switch hitter. He's one of the few fighters, probably the handful of fighters in the sport that can switch hit And he doesn't really lose a step as he changes from orthodox to southpaw. So hell of a fighter, man. Great win for Bam. That win ages well. So let's get on Teofimo versus Stevie Claggett here. How'd y'all think Teofimo looked? Chat. Serge, Jesus M, Anthony Sanchez, whoever's in the chat. Late night, so we'll pull in whatever we can pull in tonight, but may not have a lot of the regulars here. But how do y'all think Teofimo looked on Saturday? I thought he looked okay. That's how it was, and that's what I was expecting, right? I told y'all going in that I thought Teofimo would actually show out a little bit because he does that up down thing, right? And he was coming off a down performance, so he was due for an up performance, and that's why I bet. And he messed me up on this because it was the last leg of a parlay. It's the only bet that I missed on Saturday night. Had a great night betting. But the one that I missed was Teofimo's stoppage. I thought that he was going to get a stoppage against Stevie Claggett. I thought he was going to get the stoppage. And it didn't come. And the sad part about that is openings were there because Claggett leaves himself open. I understand he's got a chin. I understand he has a motor. I understand he's a tough dude. I get all that. But the openings were there for Teofimo to stop this guy. And it's clear now, the picture's becoming clearer that with Teofimo, it's not just he fights up and down to the level of competition, which I thought it was initially. It's also stylistically, he has some problems against certain guys. So there's that too. Also, mentally, he has lapses in the ring. And on top of that, he's obviously not a puncher, a power puncher at 140. He was at 135. He could ice guys with one punch. 140, he's not a big puncher. So multiple things now are starting to develop a clearer picture of Teofimo Lopez. And I'm watching this fight because it came on right before the Bam fight. And I just wasn't going to watch it if it was on the same time as Bam because Bam is must-see TV. He's fighting, everything stops. I told y'all that. My wife walks in the room, get out. My kids wake up, get out, go back to sleep. And if there's another fight, we don't put them on at the same time. Bam gets the full attention. Pause. And Teofimo, I got to watch most of the fight, and it just looked mid. He looked okay. And I got dudes getting mad at me on Twitter and X. Why isn't Teofimo on your pound for pound list? Why is it, did he look like a pound for pound fighter on Saturday night? And did he look like a pound for pound fighter the fight before? You have to understand that pound for pound gives you a snapshot of what is right now. So there is equity that's built up that guys stay on a pound for pound list even after some bad performances if they have the resume. And that's what makes Teofimo's case tricky because he has two great wins, two of the best wins in the past 5-6 years. And that's against Lomachenko. Great win. And he skyrocketed up pound for pound list. And then Josh Taylor. But he lost to Kambosos. That happened, fellas. Whether he had an off night or he was injured, it happened. Look, we have to deal with what is. We do the same thing with Lomachenko. You could argue that Lomachenko should be undisputed right now and should be 7, 8, 6 on pound for pound list if he was undisputed right now, but he isn't. They didn't give him the decision. And the same thing with Teofimo. Injured, he loses to Kambosos. He loses. Same thing with Lomachenko against Teofimo. You could argue Lomachenko was injured, all that stuff, but he fought the fight. He lost. Same thing with Teofimo against Kambosos. And on top of that, some down performances after and in between those fights. And to me, a pound for pound fighter, you know it. And it's consistency. On top of that, it's not up and down. And as I'm watching Teofimo Saturday night, I'm saying this isn't a pound for pound level fighter. It's just not. It's disappointing, fellas. That's how I felt. Like watching it, I'm like, man, this guy he's had so much promise. And I'm still like leaving the window open that it could pop back out and he could walk through that door again, that guy that we thought we had after the Lomachenko fight. And I watch him again against Claggett. I'm like, stop this guy. Stop him. Why aren't you stopping him? And Clegg is tough, I understand, but it once again goes to the young American fighters, the younger American fighters, because a lot of these guys, we're treating them like they're young. They're not so young anymore. They're not so young. And this crop of American fighters that came up at the same time, Teofimo is one of them, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, come on, man, step on it. Step on it. Do something. Get this guy out of here. I understand Clegg tough. And dudes are out there making excuses. Well, Cleggett's got a great chin. You know, Claggett, he throws 100 punches per round, and he's a tough cookie. And look, man, I feel like any other pound-for-pound fighter out there, we watch, and he goes rounds with Claggett, and the openings are there because Claggett throws 100 punches per round, and there are openings there to stop him. And we're criticizing that performance. But instead, guys are like, yeah, but he won almost every round. Yeah, but Cleggett's tough. He's got a tough chin. And I'm watching. I'm just like, he looked mid. He looked mid. He looked like a above average fighter, fellas. And I don't want that. I want Teofimo to come out and just show out. Just like I want Shakur to come out against Artem Hurtachet on Saturday night and show out. Dudes think I have ulterior motives out here that, oh, you know, you're just disrespecting. You don't like American fighters. Dude, why would I not like American fighters if I'm American? Why would I wake up and do that? Why would I want to do that? I want Teofimo to show out. I'd like for him to be a star. I'd like for Shakur to be a star. It would help if he throws more than 3 punches per round and he doesn't clinch every 5 seconds. Devin Haney, I'd like for him to be a star. He's not. And, you know, I don't know. Like, I would like for success for all these fighters. I would like for Ryan Garcia to not completely blow off weight, pop for PEDs, and get arrested with a motorcycle helmet on with no motorcycle around. This dude got arrested with a motorcycle helmet on, and there's no motorcycles in the vicinity. I would love for these dudes to be great and normal human beings. I would love for Tank to fight somebody so I could say, all right, this guy's elite. There's no question now. Put him on the top 10 pound for pound list. Put him number 1 lightweight, whatever you want to do. Even if he loses, he fights the fight. Good, man. He fought the fights. But it's not there. And I'm watching Teofimo again Saturday night. And I'm like, stop this guy. Bro, Stevie Claggett. It's Stevie Claggett. Good fighter. He's a good fighter. He's got a good chin, all that stuff, but he's throwing 100 punches per round on average before this fight. So you know the openings are going to be there. You know you can get into a firefight with this guy and catch him with something big and stop him, and it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't come. Pause once again. And that was frustrating to me. I felt disappointed once again. I felt like this fight was set up for him to look great. Claggett was made to order for him to put on a great performance because like we talked about, fellas, and there's a reason that Bob Arum looked disappointed after the fight. Everybody noticed it. Everybody saw it, right? And the reason is you need great performances to attract attention. It's not just about winning and losing. It's not just about, and Teofimo already lost his own, but it's not just about winning the fight and moving on. It's about putting on great performances. It's about making a connection with the audience. It's about having people feel like, man, I went and saw Teofimo on Saturday night. I went to the Teofimo fight. And after watching Teofimo versus Claggett, it's like, he won a wide decision. And I just feel like he's becoming one of those DVR fighters. Like, I'll catch him. I'll catch him if I'm home. There's no other fight. I'll catch it. But if there's stuff going on and Teofimo's fighting, I'm probably going to the stuff. I'll probably deal with the stuff instead of Teofimo and catch him Sunday night. That's what it is becoming, fellas. That's what it's becoming. Like, I want to cheer for the dude. I want him to be successful, but I'm watching him more and more, and I'm like, this, you know, he's a good fighter. He's a good fighter. He's a good fighter. And that's disappointing because, and here's another thing, fellas. He's talking about Bud Crawford. He's not mentioning Boots' name. And I think strategically what it is Teofimo realizes that Bud's going up to 154. He realizes that he's got his eye on Canelo and he stepped out. So it's one of those things like the school bully is out for the week or he's out for the rest of the school year. So why not just say, I want to fight the school bully, knowing that he's out for the rest of the school year? I would have fought him. I would have fought him, but he's on vacation the last two weeks of school. So you're not going to see him again. So it's safe now. It's safe to call him out now. And that's what I feel like Teofimo's doing to Bud. And on top of that, there's a threat there at 147 and Boots that he's not going to call out, that he's not going to go after. And dudes do this weight jump scam right now. This thing where they can move up weight classes and pick off belts that are convenient. That guy looks like he's an easy touch and he's got a belt. So let me hop up there and I can get a belt in another weight class. And on top of that, I can waste some time and hope that these tougher guys in my weight class could possibly lose or beat each other up in the meantime, and I can avoid tougher fights within my own weight class at the time. So there are guys at 147 that I just don't think he would call out. And I think Chris Algieri is right. We need to get back to weight class business. And Chris Algieri is right when he says collect some belts instead of moving up. I'm tired of the dudes playing the moving up weight game and think, they're acting like they're doing stuff special and the boxing fans are treating, well, this guy's a 12 weight champion. He's a 17 weight champion. How about you just stay in your weight class and you handle business there? Let's get back to weight class business. I'd like to see Teofimo try to consolidate some belts in his own weight class. Look at the top pound for pound fighters, fellas. Inoue is staying at 122, trying to collect, or he collected all the belts, right? Bud's moving up to 154. Let's see what he does. But he may make the jump, but he's older, right? But what did he do? 140, collected all the belts. 147, collected all the belts. He's going to try to collect some belts at 154. Bam Rodriguez, what's he doing? Trying to collect all the belts at 115. He's calling out the winner of a unification fight so he can collect 3 belts in his weight class at 115. Dimitri Bivol better be if they're trying to collect all the belts at 175. So I feel like the real fighters, the top 5, 6 pound for pound, Canelo collected all the belts at 168. I feel like they're in the belt collecting business and they're making the blueprint for what great fighters should be doing at this time. And Teofimo, I feel like he's eyeing other stuff, 147, instead of saying, you know what? I got the WBO. Let's fight Liam Paro for the IBF. Or let's fight the winner of Puello versus Sandor for the WBC. Let's fight Isaac Cruz, all 4'11" of them with a walking around like a real life pit bull with no neck and a collar around that little neck. Let's fight him for the WBA for unification fight. I feel like these are the moves Teofimo should be doing because obviously he doesn't have the same punching power at 140. So I don't think he's the type of guy who's going to translate up weight classes to 147, etc. And if he does move up there, it's going to be like this convenient move. Let's go get Mario Barrios, right? Let's go fight Mario Barrios for a belt instead of fighting a Boots Ennis, instead of fighting Emilio Estevez Stanionis at 147, right? And I just want to see the dude. I want to see the dude be successful. And I want to see him stay in his weight class and try to make some noise there, right? Let me see what we got before we move on to the BAM stuff. Tio needs a new trainer. Pops isn't a good strategic coach. Corner work is mediocre. That's probably it, right? But that's never going to happen. He's going to stay with his dad forever. And it just is what it is with that. So that's just not going to happen. All the hype that Shakur and Teofimo got, and now stock drop. I actually wrote that down earlier. I didn't put it on my official pound for pound list that I'm about to show y'all, but I put stock dropping, Teofimo, Haney, Shakur, and we'll see what Shakur does this week. And you saw me leave it vacant, number 10, Nando. I just feel like I was forcing myself to put a number 10 on there. I just don't feel like anybody's worth the number 10 spot right now. And that's where I'm at with it. So I was this close to putting Oscar Collazo on there. This close. But the knockdown early in his last fight kept him off my list for now. for now. Lopez is being talked about with Howard. That's tough, and it is. It is. Bam avoiding Junto for years. It's not a coincidence Bam moves around these weight classes. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Each time Junto comes in the division, he's competing. I love both these fighters, Bam and Junto, but it's funny because my guy Drew always says this, that Bam is ducking Junto. I'm not there with y'all. I'm not there with the Bam is ducking Junto thing. I think that's a fight that, look, and y'all know I don't like marination. Let's just fight the fights, right? But they're two different weight classes, 115 and 118. I do want to see these guys try to collect all the belts in those weight classes. And there are two super fights down there that I feel are realistic for late 2025, early 2026. Bam versus Junto, or Junto Inoue versus Junto at 122. So if Junto decides he wants to stay at 118 and wait around for Bam, I'm fine with that. If Junto feels like he wants to pounce at 122 and make a move on Inoue, I'm fine with that too. Both of those fights, beautiful and super fights. And once again, fellas, if you just want like boxing, if you want to hear less of, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. What's other? We can't feed our kids legacies. We can't make other promoters. Then you follow the lower weight classes. These dudes are giving you fights. Sonny Edwards coming off of a loss. Curio coming off a loss. They fight each other. And tough fight. And Sonny Edwards looks good. And he's back. He's right back. Look at Bam's resume at 24, fellas. Look at what Inoue accomplished. Quick. Look at what Junto is accomplishing. Quick. I have Nakatani Shakur fighting for the 10th. I got Nakatani higher. I'm about to show you my list in a minute. That's how it should be done. No anointing. Anointment syndrome. There's anointment syndrome. It's like this dude has a great performance, and then he's the greatest. It's the greatest ever. It's greatest ever. It's like, look, man, I'm high on Boots' talent, but we need to see it at some point. And these dudes are out there saying it's the greatest welterweight since Sugar Ray, greatest pure welterweight since Sugar Ray Leonard, and it's the best pound for pound talent we've seen since Roy Jones Jr. And that's the anointment syndrome we talk about. Let's see it. Let's see it. And hopefully we do. He's good. He's in good hands now. He's with Trust Fund Eddie. Bam did move past Junto at 112 and then moved down when Junto moved up. Now moved back up after Junto. Here we go. It's Drew. It's Drew. Drew's tactics are working. The only Sanch, he's been pushing this narrative for a while now. You know, he's in meetings with Rudy Hernandez. Rudy Hernandez is out there saying, hey, Bam's ducking us, Bam. And Drew's out there, he's spreading that gospel. Bam's ducking Junto. Bam's ducking Junto. I'm just telling y'all, that fight's going to happen at some point, fellas. And boy, is it going to be phenomenal. Boy, is it going to be fireworks. Boy, is it going to be carnage. Good Lord. Good Lord. And pound for pound implications, possibly at that point, number one pound for pound implications on the line. Good Lord. Good Lord. I love both dudes, man. Like, that's two of my favorite fighters right now in the sport. And I remember this, Nando. You were a bit of a Bam skeptic. I remember. But you're on now. You're on point now. You're there now. And it's good. It's good. He's like, what more must I do? What more must I do? Here it is. So let's talk about the fight. Bam versus Gallo. And Gallo's a legend. Legendary fighter. First of all, let me talk about the scorecards. My God, the scorecards. So one scorecard had Gallo Estrada up. One scorecard had it a draw. And fellas, is that the fight y'all saw? Is that the fight y'all saw? So it looks to me like the rig was in. It looks to me like for whatever reason, They were trying to scam Bam Rodriguez here. For whatever reason, the books were cooked to get Gallo Estrada this win going in. That's what it looks like to me. And that's sad. And that's why it's beautiful to have a fighter in Bam Rodriguez who is a killer. He's merciless. He wants to destroy guys. He wants to take your head off. He can box. He can fight with a lower degree of difficulty, or a higher degree, lower degree of difficulty, right? He can be like Shakur. He can punch 1 or 2 times and clinch you to death. And, you know, he can Usain Bolt all around the ring. He's capable of that. Great footwork, fast fighter, and defensive fighter. So he can hit once or twice and clinch and make it easier for himself, right? But he doesn't. Another reason why I love the lower weight classes, you have more fighters down there who keep their hands free, and you have naturally faster guys who force you into faster fights, and you're naturally going to get hit more down there. And you're going to have the dumb American fighters who don't understand, or dumb American boxing fans who don't understand. He gets hit too much, so he's not slick. He's not a great defensive fighter because he gets hit so much. He's keeping his hands free. He's actually fighting on the inside. And that's another beautiful thing about this fight is Bam and Gallo are keeping their hands free on the inside. Both of them. Both of them. Did any of y'all count one clinch in this fight? Think about it. Think about it for a reason. Think about it for a minute. Did y'all count a clinch? A single clinch in this whole fight? I didn't. Count clinches this weekend when Shakur fights Artem Count the clinches. There's going to be a million of them. It's going to be a million. And that's going to be seen as great defensive fighting. And Shakur is a great defensive fighter. He's one of the best defensive fighters in the sport, right? Probably top 2 with Dmitry Bivol. But what I'm saying is he's fighting with a much lower degree of difficulty because he's not keeping his hands free on the inside, and he's not going for knockouts. Bam goes for knockouts. Bam takes the judges off the table. He eliminates them. If this fight goes rounds, fellas, you may be hearing about a robbery, a highway robbery of Bam Rodriguez. And Gallo gets a decision that he doesn't deserve, and then boxing has another black eye. Bam takes the judges and renders them useless. That's what he does. We talked about the trend going into this fight. Sorang Vise, tough bastard, one of the toughest fighters in the sport. Carlos Cuadras and Gallo Estrada. Now 3 aging fighters at 115. Great fighters at 115, particularly Gallo Estrada and Sorang Vise, but past it, and he stops him. That's what he does. That's what he does. That's the trend. And he seems like a beast, particularly at 115. But he takes the judges, he renders them useless. And that's good. That's what we need in the sport because the judges are short bus. It's just short bus stuff at this time, fellas. It's either these dudes are completely dumb. Just think of all of these decisions that we've been seeing. Completely dumb, or what I think is this is just flat out corruption. And I think the books were cooked going into this fight clearly against Bam Rodriguez for whatever reason. I don't understand why. I don't understand why that would be the case. Don't you want the young 24-year-old fighter to be successful? The one that can be a legitimate star here in the lower weight classes? Why would you cook the books against him? But it looks like that's what happened in this fight because nobody with 2 eyes you don't even have to be a high IQ boxing guru. Like, just watch the fight. On what planet was Gallo winning this fight? On what planet was this a draw? It wasn't. Bam was styling. Other than the knockdown where he got caught careless, and I understand what happened there. He got confident. And if you watch in between rounds before, you're watching Bam, and I said to myself, he better not get too confident because Gallo's still Gallo. Bam's smiling, and he knows he's in the zone. And Bam can go to a zone that few athletes can go to. He's there now. It's elite level stuff that Bam's doing in the ring. And he's smiling, and Robert's smiling. Like, Robert's like, yeah, you're in the zone. You're in the zone. And then he gets overconfident. He comes in, flash knockdown. And he hops up at like a half a second. He's fine. But other than that, a flawless performance. Footwork. Finding angles like a 126-pound Lomachenko, right? You have the most efficient offensive fighter in the sport in Bam Rodriguez. 49 point something percent power punches he lands. So he's landing every other power punch. 37% overall, I believe, a high jab percentage he's landing at. So you have an offensive machine here, an absolute offensive machine, efficient fighter, and he's doing it with a high output. When you have a highly efficient fighter, you usually have him where he's economical, right? So it's easy to be efficient and land at a higher percentage. This guy has a good output, a high output, and he's still landing at a high clip, a high percentage. Offensive machine, high IQ. It's all there, and it's all set up with the footwork and balance. Other than the flash knockdown, he doesn't get off of balance. He doesn't get out of position, and he's fighting once again. It's all of that rolled into it. Like you have a special fighter, but on top of that, he's exciting. How many fighters have we talked about that this guy looks special? Shakur's a great example of this. Looks special, but it's like watching paint dry at the same time. Late stage Floyd Mayweather, right? Yeah, he's special, but he's like watching paint dry. Bam, not only is he elite, top shelf elite in the sport, special fighter, but he's entertaining at the same time. He's fighting with a high degree of difficulty. He's keeping his hands free. He's not clinching, and he's setting up the power shots. And his opponents are just getting overwhelmed. And guys who don't get overwhelmed. Gallo does not get overwhelmed in the ring. Sora and Vise does not get overwhelmed in the ring. So you could say these guys are past it, I understand, but it's Gallo. This is Gallo, fellas. This is Gallo Estrada that he just got in there and destroyed. He absolutely destroyed him. He outboxed him. It's not just younger fighter like Jermaine Taylor against Bernard Hopkins, right? Where he just beats him with activity. He's the more athletic fighter. He's outboxing him. He's outwitting him. He looks like he has the higher IQ. He's finding angles against him. He's countering Gallo's punches. Did you see his feints? He's feigning Gallo. He's feigning Gallo into throwing, and then he's countering off of Gallo's shots that he knows that Gallo's going to throw based off of the feints that he's throwing. This is Bam Rodriguez. We have a special 24-year-old fighter here. That's what we have. We have a generational talent here, fellas. This isn't pre-anointment syndrome. This isn't me just anointing. No, it's all there. He's there. This is it. The young American fighter that we've been waiting to walk through that door, right? And you had this young crop coming up, right? And it was Teofimo, it was Ryan, it was Haney, it was Tank, it was who else? But the handful of guys plus in American boxing that just can't put it together. And we've talked about why, right? Like Tank up to this point hasn't fought the fights. Devin gets beat by Ryan. Ryan beats Devin and, can't even get the belt because he blows off the weight. Osterin, he's on Osterin, and he gets arrested with a motorcycle helmet on where there's no motorcycles around. Shakur, he's got his O, but Nakathila fight happened, and the De Los Santos fight happened. And you're like, can any of these dudes put something sustainable together? Can somebody at least go above the low standards that have been set by American journalists and American boxing fans for these pampered, privileged, elitist fighters who think they deserve things that they don't really deserve? They haven't done anything special to deserve these things yet. And none of them can put anything sustainable together. At end walks this dude who I don't know. Like, he's there. We saw it. We know he's special, but he doesn't look the part, right? He looks like a cholo Harry Potter. He's got face tattoos. He's walking into the ring to Mexican rap, which is never good. So, but he's that dude. He is that dude. He's the one. He's the one we've been waiting on. He's the one we've been waiting on. Unfortunately, it's going to take some work with marketing because of the things I mentioned and because he's 115 pounds. And unfortunately for American boxing fans, they're just, American boxing fans are short bus. It's just short bus stuff. Let's be honest about this, right? American boxing fans as a whole, not very educated, don't know boxing history well, and just they don't follow all the weight classes. Generally speaking, they follow mostly the middle weight classes. Roughly, let's give them 130 to about 154 is the wheelhouse for American boxing fans these days. 168 too, because Canelo's there. Maybe 175, but cruiserweight, nah, not really. Heavyweight, every once in a while. Anything under lightweight, likely not. And it's unfortunate because you're missing great stuff. You're missing great stuff. Now, Bam is number 2 behind Shakur on CompuBox Plus minus. That's right. That's right. An offensive machine. And his offense almost becomes his defense because dudes are so overwhelmed with the angles and the footwork. And it's just hard for them to get into a rhythm. He doesn't allow fighters to get into a rhythm. Just think about that for a minute. Rungvisai never got in a rhythm. Sonny Edwards couldn't get in a rhythm. And watch Sonny Edwards. If you watch him against Curiel, the dude, prime, top shelf athlete. Great legs, footwork from Sonny Edwards. Great jab, switch hitter. He just doesn't have any power, right? That's his Achilles heel. But Bam didn't allow him. He doesn't allow his opponents to get in a rhythm. So if you're a rhythm fighter, which, I mean, to a certain extent, everybody is, Gallo was never allowed to get into that rhythm. He was never allowed to get into a rhythm. He just wasn't. Bam was all over him. It's sad to see a great champion go all like that. I shout out nerd. I appreciate Gallo for fighting the fight. So yeah, I mean, it's always sad to see a legend lose in that manner, but here's the thing: you're gonna see it again because he's gonna fight him again. Gallo thinks he can make adjustments against Bam, and that's the warrior heart, right? That's his soul speaking. What your boy saying, Pulp Fiction? Don't listen to your conscience. That's your conscience. Don't listen to that voice. That's your conscience. That's effing with you. That's the same thing you want to say to Gallo. It's like, don't listen to that warrior spirit. That's your warrior spirit. You don't want any parts of Bam again, but it's going to happen again. He's going to fight him again in the fall. And Bam's going to destroy him, I think, even more thoroughly this time. But this is what happens, fellas. This is a tough sport, and I love the old lion versus young lion angle, the old lion versus young lion narrative, the old lion versus young lion story, and those type of fights, because it's can the old lion, the legend, first ballot Hall of Famer, future first ballot Hall of Famer, turn back the clock, or will the young lion rip it from him and take it from him? And what we saw on Saturday night was the passing of the torch. This was Gallo or Bam saying, because Gallo didn't give it willingly, and he's still not giving it willingly because he wants another shot at it. But this was Bam saying, "No, this is mine now. These are my belts. Ring belt, give me that. WBC, give me that. This is my division now. It's my division. If you want to do it again, we'll do it again. But look, I'm gonna fight. If not, I'm gonna fight the winner of Ioka versus Fernando Martinez for the WBA and IBF. And I'm gonna unify this whole division, and nobody's gonna stop me. That's Bam. Right now, it's weight class business. This is my weight class. Eventually, we'll get those super fights. We'll align them. Stuff's gonna develop down here. Could be Junto. Who knows? Down the line, it could be Inoue. I kind of doubt that fight happens down the line. Inoue, Bam, because I think Inoue is going to eventually move his way up to 126. And I think there's going to be too much of a gap there. Maybe not. But, boy, Bam versus Junto. What a fight that's going to be. So I don't really look at it that way. Yes, it is kind of sad, but at the same time, I respect Gallo for fighting that fight. To me, it doesn't take anything away from his legacy. It really doesn't. Yeah. Sonny was prime in unification, and he destroyed him. The vertical format. Yeah, y'all hate that. All right, I gave Estrada the round 1 toss-up in round 6 because of the knockdown. And that's fair. I didn't give him anything except the round 6, 10-8. That's just me. But that's a fair scorecard. Shout out to Ed Woodson in the chat. And Gallo's footwork looked clumsy compared to Bam's. That was the difference to me, and that's not getting better in a rematch. I'm with you. So here's the much-awaited pound-for-pound list. Let's pop it up right here. Let me see if y'all can see that good. Let's see what we got. All right, I think we're good. Let me get this comment down. Updated Calix Boxing pound-for-pound list. And look, I prefer to do this in tiers now just to give you a better illustration of where I think these fighters are, because quite frankly, it's kind of difficult to do a top 10 pound-for-pound list at this moment. I talked about recency bias, and I feel like recency bias should show up in a pound-for-pound list because you're taking a snapshot of what things are and where they are now. And you have to have equity, a good bit of equity built up if you're not doing special things right now. And you have guys on this list that are doing special things. I mean, you got Usyk, Inoue, and Bud. Those three stick out to me as the tier 1 because they're all doing special things. They've all completely cleaned out multiple weight classes. Usyk, cruiserweight, heavyweight, undisputed. Inoue, 118, 122, undisputed. Bud, 140, 147, undisputed. They're on a tier of their own, right? Going into this fight, I had Bam, I believe, number 7 on my pound-for-pound list. And this performance right here, I thought going in that I'd probably move him up to number 6. But this performance right here I felt was so great. So great. I moved him up to number 4. It's like, this guy is a special fighter, and he's got the resume to back it up. So not only is it the eye test, it's the eye test coupled with the resume. It's easy to have their eye test fly off the screen when you're not fighting the competition level. But Bam is fighting the competition level. And another thing that I value about Bam and I appreciate about him as a fighter coming from a boxing fan is it's becoming more rare that we see fighters fighting tough fights or real legacy fights when they're actually in their prime. Think about that for a second. A lot of guys now are 30, 31, 32 before they're fighting their legacy fights. And Bam's fighting him at 23, 22, 23, 24 years old. He's fighting legacy fights. He's building a resume in his early 20s, early to mid 20s. And that's what I value about him, because generations ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, probably even 15 years ago, you had guys doing special things in their early 20s to mid 20s, early on in their career. I mean, just think about, look, Jermaine Taylor didn't end up being a great fighter. He just didn't. But he was 3.5 years in when he won the middleweight titles off of Bernard Hopkins, and then did it again in a rematch. So you had more ambition. You had more guys trying to do special things early on in their careers. And Bam gives us a look of that a little bit as to guys doing special things early on, again, in their actual primes, in their actual athletic primes. And that's a beautiful thing. So Bam to me is the top of tier 2 right now. And tier 2 would be Bam, Bivol, Canelo, Better Biev, Junto the Merciless One, and Ioka. So here's the thing with that. Junto, I think, is every bit as great or close to it as Bam right now. But the resume is lacking a little bit. You could argue it's because maybe guys just don't want to fight Junto at this time. Fair enough. You take that into consideration, and to me, even with not one of the strongest resumes of the guys, say on that tier 2 and even tier 1, he's still on it because you take that stuff into consideration, and you take into consideration performance. It's not just resume, it's not just eye test, it's performance as well. How are these guys' actual performance? It's the reason that Shakur is not on here. Shakur, to me, looks like a special fighter. I've been saying it for a couple of years now. Like, this guy, Shakur, is going to be number 1 pound for pound at some point, but you watch him fight, and the performances just aren't there. And you take into consideration that he can't build the resume that some of these guys, other guys do, because guys are openly ducking him, and you got to give him that. You take that into consideration. Tank doesn't have the resume because Tank doesn't want the fights. Shakur wants the fights, but he can't get the resume at 135 because guys don't want to fight him. It's a different thing. Shakur's peers react differently when his name is brought up, so you got to give him that. But at the same time, the performances have to be there. You got to watch a guy and say, that's a pound for pound level performance. And Shakur, that's what he's missing. He's missing the performances. That's what he's missing. And it's why I just left number 10 vacant. Taraji has the resume, but sometimes I watch Taraji and I say, I don't think this is a top 10 pound for pound guy, Kenshiro Taraji. Lomachenko would be there had he got the decision against Haney, which everybody feels like he did deserve that. But officially he didn't. He'd be undisputed right now, and he'd be somewhere on that tier 2, likely, probably somewhere in the middle of it. But we got to go off of what is, and he doesn't have it. And I still feel like he's right outside the top 10, somewhere between 11 and 15. And Jaya Opataya, it looks like he has a gas problem. And I don't mean a gas problem like he farts. I mean, like, it looks like he trails off as fights goes on, but that could be Maris Bradis. Like, Bradis just a tough bastard. So he's a guy who can consolidate belts at cruiserweight, and we'll revisit as time goes on. So he's right on the outside. And Oscar Collazo, like I said, if he didn't get knocked down early in that fight, and it wasn't a knockdown like a flash knockdown like Bam, it was like he was really hurt. No, he was really hurt. Had it not been for that, he'd probably be number 10 on the pound for pound list right now. But Bivol won the head-to-head against Canelo, so that has to matter for something. Look, it's one thing if you have a head-to-head win, and Teofimo had a head-to-head win against Lomachenko, but I don't put him as high as Lomachenko because look at all the stuff that's happened afterward, right? It's a certain point when Bivol went 11, almost 12 months without doing anything, I jumped Canelo back ahead of Bivol. And now Bivol's back active, and it's not his fault the Better Biev fight didn't happen at that point. So you drop him, you put him back up above Canelo. So Canelo right now, number 6. Better Biev just can't keep it together as far as injuries. So he's number 7. And Junto's right there at number 8. But you see what's developing here. You see what's developing. Number 1, you see that I value lower weight classes. Look at Inoue there. You got Bam there. You got Junto there. You got Ioka there with a great resume. And we'll see. We'll see this weekend. He's in a toss-up fight with Fernando Martinez. If Ioka doesn't win the fight, he drops out. It's just how it works. But Junto, Ioka, Collazo, Taraji, I value the lower weight class because these guys are actually fighting the fights. And unfortunately, when I look at American pound for pound lists, I see an American bias there. And since there's American bias, you're not going to see the non-American weight classes represented in those pound for pound lists. You're not. And I feel like they give American fighters too much leeway and credit at times. Like, I mean, nobody in their right mind believes Errol Spence belongs on the top 10 pound for pound list right now, right? We're all there, but in some he is. In some pound for pound lists, I'm not going to mention the names, but I saw Benavidez on there. And pound for pound, fellas, is pound for pound. And the problem with Benavidez being there is he outweighs pretty heavily on fight night his opponents, other than Vodzik. So I don't understand. Like, he's clearly top 2 at 168. Clearly. He's there. But pound for pound is a different thing. And if you're outweighing your opposition by that much on fight night, and he's doing it legally, so he deserves to be top 2 at 168. He deserves that credit. But pound for pound is something else. Pound for pound is pound for pound. If all these guys were the same weight, who would win? How would that work out? And people can use their criteria as to try to figure that out and formulate it, right? A guy who outweighs people by 15, 20, sometimes 25 pounds on fight night, is that guy really a pound for pound fighter? And once again, I think that's just American bias when you see Benavidez pop up on top 10 pound for pound lists. I do. Like, he's not even on the radar to me as pound for pound. And you can stay at the same weight class and hop on pound for pound lists. You don't have to hop weight classes to get on there. Look, Gennady Golovkin was a career middleweight. Other than his last fight, he was on pound for pound list, high on pound for pound list. Bernard Hopkins was a middleweight for how long? And he stayed there and he was on pound for pound list. But you have to build up a lot of equity. Benavidez hasn't done that yet. And he's just outweighing these guys by so much that I don't understand how one could consider him pound for pound. I think that's just good old fashioned American bias there. Saludos, the minstrel monster, never right on cue. Edwin loves David Benavidez. He loves it. He loves David Benavidez. Absolutely loves him. And by the way, Benavidez got a 20-day extension or something to decide, am I going to fight at 168 interim belt or 175 interim belt? Which interim belt? It's a mess. That whole thing's a mess. But he's just not a pound for pound fighter. Come on. He's not a pound for pound level fighter. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. All this is subjective, but it's only subjective to a certain point, right? Like, I mean, I see Boots hop up on pound for pound lists, and you say, eye test tells me, yeah, that could be the case, but is that all we're going off of? Is that all we're going off of? It's just eye test, because that's the only way you could get him there right now. Benavidez is going to die at 168. So I think I've said this for a while, man. I just don't see the dude staying up at 175 right now. I don't know. I don't know. Eventually, he'd have to answer the call to Bivol, right? And I stand on 10 toes on that one. I don't think anybody 175 and under beats Dimitri Bivol. And I don't like Dimitri Bivol. I don't like him. The dude just rubs me the wrong way. The dude has the personality of a cardboard box. Allegedly a domestic violence abuse. Allegedly. We got to say allegedly. Doesn't seem like the nicest guy. Not very marketable. And watching him fight at times is like watching paint dry. It's like, can the dude please take it out of third gear? But it still is what it is. Best defensive fighter in the sport. He's going to get underneath you. He's not going to take a backward step. He's in that sprinter stance. And he's going to beat Better Be, fellas. Like, I look, I'm going heavy on that one. They got that as a toss up. I'm going heavy on that one. Bivol is going to beat Better Biev. He's going to beat him. He's going to wait for Bivol to move up to fight Opataya. Possibly. It's possibly the move, right? So to me, once again, I'll say it again because I know the haters are going to come after me. I'm there for Canelo Benavidez right now. Make the fight. I want weight class business dealt with. And then I want Bud at 154 to have a run there. But to me, it's looking more and more like Canelo's got a Riyadh season tune-up, and then right after that, Canelo versus Bud. That's what it seems like to me. And a lot of people are going to be fine with that. And I'm fine with that. It's good. It's a great fight. And I'll just say this real quick before we get back to the Benavidez thing to wrap it up. Benavidez team hasn't done themselves any favor. A lot of this, look, I'm not saying Canelo deserves none of the blame, fellas. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they need to handle this better than they're handling it. And I said this earlier on Twitter or on X. Elon wants to call it X. So I guess it's X. He owns it, so we call it X. So it's X. But I said this earlier. Tank's supposedly a star, right? And he's the face of boxing, they say. And he's got David Benavidez on the card. And they're working hard to try to make this guy a star too. And Dan Raphael's out there reporting that it did 325,000 pay-per-view buys. Whatever it is, right? 150, 325. They can say whatever they want to say it is. That's the thing. Like nobody can access these numbers. But we all know it didn't do well. It didn't do well. And you have to ask yourself at certain points, like, something is off. Something's not adding up here. Because, all right, you're trying to tell me that, number one, Tank Davis is the face of boxing and he's a mega star, right? He's the biggest star in boxing. So it's like, okay, so why'd they have to put David on the undercard? Well, we want to give you quality control. You asked for it. We're giving you quality control. No, I don't buy that, number one. Number two, David's on the card. So Canelo versus David Benavidez would be the biggest fight in boxing is what they're telling us. And I'm starting to question that. I'm starting to ask myself, would it be? Would it be? Because if this dude is on an undercard and the pay-per-view buys are somewhere between 150 and 325, and then the fight before that he did like 50,000 or whatever it was, 40,000 against Boo Boo Andre. Is this the biggest fight in boxing? Is it? Is Canelo versus Bud bigger? And maybe that's why they're angling for that. Maybe that's what Turkey Al-Sheikh says. I don't know, but I'm just telling you, like, something doesn't add up. And once again, it's a fight that I want to see, fellas. I don't think Benavidez is a great fighter. I just don't. But stylistically, that's a shootout. Stylistically, that fight is going to be a great fight. Canelo Benavidez. It just is. I just don't, especially after Canelo versus Munguia does 520,000 buys or whatever it did. Is Canelo versus Benavidez really this box office blockbuster bonanza that they're saying it is? If this dude is fighting on an undercard on a pay-per-view that barely anybody watched. And Joe Abib has said this before. Sometimes it's not addition, it's multiplication. So it's a good point. It's a good point. Maybe even though Benavidez isn't a draw at all, he still brings eyeballs to the table. There's still a lot of intrigue behind this actual fight because Canelo's on the throne and it's a real threat to the throne because it is. It is. All that's true. Tank's not a draw, but Ryan versus Tank is a draw. Ryan's maybe not a draw pay-per-view on his own. Tank not a draw pay-per-view on his own, but together they multiply and the numbers multiply, right? And I don't believe that fight did 1.2 million buys. I just don't. But still, whatever it did, it was successful. So sometimes it's multiplication. I'm just saying, like, something feels off. Something feels off. I can't quite put my fingers on it, but something feels off about Benavidez's team and how this is going. I don't. Fam, Minstrel Monster is number 2 at super middleweight. Canelo waved him to the ring. He was shook and requested 175 interim to fight Vodzik with a silent G, who is older, and fake narratives by them. And the narratives were fake, and we called it out at the time, right? They tried to say that Vodzik with a silent G was a dangerous fight. They tried to say, oh, this is Benavidez daring to be great. He's going up to 175. He's going to chase down Beterbiev and Bivol. He's going to fight this tough Ukrainian fighter. Because he was chasing greatness and he can't get the fight at 168. And we're saying, Vodzik with a silent G? Like, that guy retired for 3-4 years. He was once a hell of a fighter. He did what he did to Adonis Stevenson. He was in the fight with Beterbiev until he wasn't. But that's not 2024 Vodzik with a silent G. It's just not. And we called it out. All I'm saying is I'm there with you that, look, he is a top 2 super middleweight. Like, you got to give him that right now. But I'm with you that something feels off. Something's funny. Something's funny. Man, I don't want to turn this into a Canelo versus Benavidez thing because I'm tired of that already, but I'm Canelo versus Bud is a way bigger. So is Berlanga? I disagree with the Berlanga thing. But I'm gonna let's just say this. I want to wrap it up with this. Right now, Bam Rodriguez, you need to appreciate certain fighters when they walk through that door. It hasn't been pretty with American boxing recently. It just hasn't. They're not going to be honest about that, but it just hasn't. Just look at the numbers of titles. Look at all this stuff, and just your eyes. Let your eyes be the judge. It hasn't been pretty. So when a young American fighter walks through the door like this, I don't know if the star power is going to be there. I don't know if this guy is going to be a mega star in the sport because there are things to overcome as far as the weight, as far as marketability, but the hands do the talking. He renders judges useless. They went into this fight. There's no doubt about it with the books cooked. They went into this fight attempting to rob this guy. And he went in there and he said, doesn't matter. These are my judges. Footwork is there. Defense is there. Highly efficient offensive fighter with great output at the same time. Entertaining at the same time because he fights with a high degree of difficulty by not clinching. And we need to hold on to that too. We need to hold on to that because you're seeing more and more fighters, particularly American fighters, very clinchy, very cagey, fighting with a low degree of difficulty. Not worrying about should we entertain the fans. Not even worrying about the fans. It's, I'm going to just get past this fight. We're going to move on. Sort of like we saw from Teofimo against Stevie Claggett. It's like, I'm not worried about it. Bob didn't like the performance and, what people thought about the performance. And that's the problem. You should care about what the fans think about your performance. When people come to see you fight, They're there to see you fight. And people increasingly are living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck these days. Everything's so expensive that when they go out for a night of fights, they want to be entertained. And it rubs people the wrong way. It rubs boxing fans the wrong way. That's why so many of them have left. And there's been this big exodus in American boxing as far as fans, because fans are tired of being mistreated. They're tired of, they already know the power brokers and the sanctioning organizations don't care about them. Networks don't care about them. But used to be, I think, a high percentage of fighters cared about what the fans thought about them and wanted to entertain the fans who paid good money to see them fight. And it's good when you have fighters who actually do. And Bam may not say it. He may not be the most marketable guy, but I'll tell you what, when I watch that guy fight, it sure as hell looks like he cares about what the fans think about him. It sure as hell thinks that he has a value system that I'm going to work hard. I'm going to fight the best fights. I'm going to fight the toughest fights. I'm going to try to consolidate all the belts. I'm going to put on a show. And it's a breath of fresh air. It's a breath of fresh air to watch this guy fight. It just is, man. Like I'm watching this Saturday night. And I'm like, this is great. This is great. This is just great. There's no problem, nothing negative about any of this. Even Gallo, like I'm watching Gallo, and he's trying. The guy's trying. Even to the end, he's trying. He's a legend who put it on the line against a younger lion, and good for him. But I'm watching Bam, and I'm like, man, this dude, it's all there. It's all there. And it's just a breath of fresh air watching that guy fight. And as a boxing fan, I just want to thank the dude. Thank you. Thank you. On that note, man, I'll see y'all tomorrow. God bless. Peace.